And here we go, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. The tour takes about 30 minutes, more or less. 28 people now. I hope we are 28 also when we are back. And this is the Church of Our Lady here from the 13th century, the beautiful church, the beautiful tower. And this is where they keep the very famous sculpture that was made by Michelangelo, the Madonna. White marble statue sculpture from Michelangelo. You need to see this. This is our museum for antiques. It's a palace built in the 15th century. The palace from the richest people who had the monopoly on selling ingredients for beer. And we had more than 400 breweries for 45,000 people. That's how they became so rich. A beautiful view on the Church of Our Lady on the right. There were so many breweries because everyone was drinking beer. Wine was for the rich people. Coffee and tea came much later at the end of the 18th century. They couldn't drink water because they didn't know they had to boil the water to kill the bacteria. And there was no Coca-Cola yet. Beautiful building behind the bridge is, or was, one of the oldest hospitals in Europe, St. John's Hospital. It was founded in the 12th century. It always became bigger and bigger, of course, and we used it until 1976. And there is an old pharmacy now that you can visit, and a painting museum from the painter Hans Memling. But in the Middle Ages there was not much that could be done when you were sick. They did bloodlettings. Welcome to the Middle Ages. We need to go under an extremely low bridge, the next one. As you can see, it's very, very, very low. And it will be very close to your heads. That's why for each one of you there is caskets under the seats. Nobody below, believe me, of course. Anyway, mind your heads. Will be lower at the end. Nowadays we don't have the 400 breweries anymore. There are only two. This is the oldest one, the most interesting one to visit also. And there is also a beer museum. If I would translate the names of the beers that they are making here in English, that would be Strong Henry and the Fool of Bruges. This is the Béguinage, a convent founded 700 years ago. The beautiful, peaceful place to visit. The private beach for the swans of Bruges. We lost a lot of the swans in the last couple of years because many of them died because of the bird flu, unfortunately. This is the lock house. You can see locks under the house. There are locks everywhere around the city to control the water level. Behind the house is a beautiful small lake. We call it the Lake of Love. But we have many more Madonnas, 320 in total, and you find them everywhere you look. There are 2 Madonnas on the red building at the end over there, and there's another one on the house, 320 in total. People call Bruges the Madonna city sometimes, or the Maria city. This is one of the electric boats here. We are still in an old diesel boat, and the electric boats have to go a little bit slower because otherwise they run out of electricity at the end of the day. By the way, the brewery here is connected with another part of the brewery outside Bruges, where they put the beer in bottles, and they are both connected by an underground pipeline, which is quite unique, a 3.5 miles pipeline. We have ducks as well, better known as number 78 on the Chinese menu. Don't forget to mind your heads again at the low bridge in a moment here. This is one of the oldest church, and it's the cathedral also, built 800 years ago. The Church of Our Lady is 100 years younger, but the tower from the Church of Our Lady is the second highest one that was built only in bricks in Europe. 38 feet, 115.6 meters. Almost every big building was built in Gothic style. That's why Bruges is the most Gothic city in the world, not the biggest, but the most Gothic city. And here you see the typical Gothic style windows. These are the houses that were built for the working class people, very tiny houses, big families used to live here. And when the weather is nice, when it's sunny and warm weather, I always see the people having lunch or dinner on the terrace in the sunshine here. The people here bought 2 smaller houses to make a bigger one. Some wooden facades also, you will see that sometimes they are not very old. We only have 2 original ones, 2 old ones. But most of these date from the 18th or the 19th century. And And I show you the smallest window of the city now, a window in Gothic style also. Then we have to go under 3 different bridges that were built in different centuries next to each other. You can see the house on top. On top of the first 2 bridges, the one from the 17th and the one in the middle from the 16th century. The street is on top of the 3rd bridge from the 15th century. 17th, 16th, 15th. We also have a beautiful painting museum, the Blue Door on the right. The big building with the flags is the College of Europe. And when you did university studies already, and after you paid 15,000 euros, you can come here for 1 year to specialize in Europe. The Evo Hotel there was a business house from a guy from Venice originally. It's one of the more expensive hotels nowadays, 700 euros for the night, for the cheapest room. But it's also the only building that has very special, expensive old crystal glass in the windows. And you can see that it looks purple from here, but when you look from the inside to the outside, it's pure white. Everything you see here is 200-300 years old, except for the Spanish building, 16th century. And in the background, in a moment, the beautiful chimneys from the City Hall on top of the roof. If you want, you can take a beautiful picture from the belfry in a moment, the bell tower. And it's leaning over to the right a little bit, as you can see. That's something to think about when you climb to the top, of course. It's in 2 parts. You can see that we built it in the 13th century, the first part, but then something very bad happened in the city of Ghent. They built a bigger one. And that's why we made it bigger than the one in the city of Ghent. Again, we built the second part later in the 16th century. The back of the City Hall. I'm sure that you will see the facade, the front side, during your time here. And there are many statues on the facade, and they are all important people, local people from the past. We also have one of the oldest city halls in Northern Europe, and it has been a model for most of the other city halls here in Flanders. This is the old Palace of Justice that we used until the 1970s, and there a modern sculpture from a famous local sculptor, Permeke. It's about mythology, about a lady who is looking for her children who drowned in a river somewhere. She keeps on looking because she can't find them. Very tragic story. There are 43 of those beautiful small bridges, and this is the oldest one. It was built in 1392, 1392. statistics about Bruges. About 8 million people visit our city every year. But during Corona, the city was dead, of course. There are also 10 miles, 16 kilometers of canals. They are 2 meters deep, 6.5 feet. There's a lot of fish in the water also. There are 5 boat companies. Each company has 4 boats, 20 boats in total. And every year more than 1 million people make it tour on the canals in our city. And half of the boats are electric. And as I said, we are in one of the oldest boats on the canals, the diesel boat that is ready to sink any moment now. To the left, just above the door, you can see the sculpture of the symbol of Bruges, the bear. The bear of Bruges. Until about 500 years ago, we only had wooden houses, just like everywhere else in Europe. Then they have been forbidden because of the danger for fire. That's when they started to build the houses that we can still see everywhere nowadays. The oldest ones are the houses with the typical step gables. This is an old monastery on the left, and nowadays it's also one of the buildings for the College of Europe. And the black steel bars, they keep the construction together. The wall anchors, you see it everywhere. Have a look at the house on the corner here. You can see that the people eliminated some windows, and that's because they had to pay a window tax in the 19th century. Less windows, less taxes. There was a window tax in France and England also. Beautiful houses on the right. Have a look next to the doors. You can see the black shoe scrapers almost on the ground to scrape all the dirt from the shoes. Probably the dog shit as well. They are renovating an old brewery here, built originally in 1675. You can see the construction date. See 5 different centuries next to each other, 5 different styles. The building with the tower is not a church, it was a meeting place for the businessmen during the golden years of Bruges, when we were one of the biggest harbors in Europe, and when cities like London or Paris were only 4 times bigger than our city. So this was the financial city where the money was. And some of that money probably went to the red lights district that was just behind it. I'm very sorry to show you this big mistake here from the 1980s. But they only made one mistake like that. And there we have one of the most famous and best painters we ever had in Bruges, the Green Man, Jan van Eyck, the statue at the end of the canal. Have a look at the house here. You can see those crazy faces above the windows and above the door, and they had to scare the bad spirits away. That's why they are looking a little bit dangerous. This is also an old monastery. It has been the consulate of Great Britain in the Second World War, but it's a school nowadays. You can see that the canal continues to the left. This was the connection with the sea harbor during the golden years, and you need to know that every year more than 15,000 sail ships arrived here at the harbor, and they came with merchandise from all over the world, from the Far East, England and Scotland, where we bought wool, and even from Russia, where we bought leather. And for the people who still remember the beautiful actress Audrey Hepburn, she used to live in this house here for a while in the 1950s. The buildings and the houses, sometimes it says something about the people who lived there or the people who built it. I will slow down a little bit in a moment, and when you look in the streets on the left, on the right side, the second house, on top you can see the sculpture of a man reading a book. Top of the house on the right side, middle on top, and probably a writer used to live there. When you look at the red house on the right, in the middle of the house above the window you see the sculpture of a musician. Probably a musician used to live here, is holding a music instrument. You can also see the friendly looking faces above the windows. Probably very kind people with a good character live here, and this is the house of my ex-wife. This one here you can buy for 800,000 euros, but I think that you will need another 400,000 for the renovations. It needs a complete makeover. I think that the guy, the musician, probably had a good sense of humor, because he had those crazy, no, not the crazy looking, but the friendly faces on his facade, and probably he didn't believe in bad spirits either. An interesting story, and a true story also, is that when rich people committed many big crimes, murder sometimes, they started to panic that they would lose their place in heaven after they died, so they had to find a solution. Then they built small houses for the poor people as a compensation for all the bad things they did. This is an example where you see the red door on the left side. And here in Belgium, I mean in Flanders, yes, in Belgium we call them God's houses, and that's a little bit the same as the almshouses in England. And still nowadays, elderly, poor people are living there. Beautiful view in front of you here. That's That's the cathedral in the background. Pigeons, that's another story. They have always been important because they were the fastest way to send messages to other cities, even other countries. And we see the pigeon towers on top of the Palace of Justice. That's where they started their trip. And even the Romans and the Greeks used pigeons a long time ago, thousands of years ago. Sometimes even for sending sports results or love letters. That's very romantic. The pigeon knocking on your window, bringing you a love letter. Sometimes bridges have funny names. That's the Bright Donkey Bridge. And this is the fish markets. A gift from Napoleon. We still use it nowadays, but not as much as before. It's almost nothing anymore. It became a tourist market in the weekends. And if you want, you can buy everything here that you would normally never buy in your life at the tourist market. That was used in the movie Bruges, and it's here, the left window here, the actor Colin Farrell, he jumped out of that window exactly here in the canals in the movie. James Bond would have jumped from the roof.
That house. It's a tower.
Some beautiful sculptures on top of that house, the one on the corner. 7 beautiful sculptures. The oldest brewery already, and this is the other one on the right, with the terrace. This means that we are almost at the end of the tour. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was a little bit interesting also. If you liked my commentary, there's a possibility to leave a small tip in the tip box, and I wish you a beautiful day here in Bruges, a nice holiday in Europe. Thank you for joining me on the tour, and have a great holiday. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.